The Canadian government finds itself with a decision to make on a private member's bill that will have major potential impacts on the trading relationship with the U.S. Host of Real Ag Radio, Shaun Haney, joins us now with the very latest. Shaun, good to have you with us. So what is Bill C-282 and why the new pressure on the government?
Well, it's great to be with you here this morning. So Bill C-282 is a private member's bill, as you described, that is, its intent is to basically limit, handcuff, tie the hands of Canadian trade negotiators in any future trade or free trade negotiation, to prevent them from ever giving up access to some of the supply managed commodities again. So remember, in the negotiation of the USMCA, the U.S. negotiated some more access for U.S. dairy products into Canada. If 282 passes, it would make this impossible for Canadian free trade negotiators to ever do that similar sort of tactic again to close the deal. Why this is an issue right now? The NDP and the Liberals, their coalition agreement, I guess I'll describe it as, has ended, and now the Bloc, which is a Quebec separatist party, holds the majority of the power in the House, keeping the government afloat. And one of their demands to not bring down the government is the government needs to pass C-282, which has a lot of people concerned in the exportable commodities.
So does this bill kind of muddy the water with the future of the USMCA between us and Canada?
Well, here's where it becomes a problem. Okay, so let's just say it passes, it becomes legislation. I have had a few people say to me that, listen, there is potentially ways around the legislation, but let's just take it as it would handcuff negotiators. We get to that July 1st, 2026 date where we're going to look at the USMCA. We've already heard from candidate Harris, if she wins the election, she wants to rip up the agreement. I'm sure that if it's going to be President Trump that wins the election, he's going to have some potential new demands and thoughts on that agreement as well. If that does happen and we reopen some of the components of that trade agreement, Canada will not be able to give up any sort of dairy access, which has some Canadians very concerned that it's going to be sort of a poke the bear sort of scenario where it's actually going to up the pressure on the U.S. demanding even more dairy access than they had before, even though that legislation's in place. So it's going to be a bit of a sticky situation for negotiators on both sides to get through.
It really is. So do you think it will get through the Senate and back to the House for royal assent?
A good question, because it is stuck in the Senate right now. The Canadian Senate did have a hearing on it just last week, pro people for the bill, people talking against the bill. It's still really up for question. I think the Senate's going to drag its feet as long as it can. If it does get back to the House, it's going to put major pressure on this Liberal government, because we have to have an election between now and the fall. The Bloc is given to the end of this month for this to become law. It's going to be very, very tight. I think the government may have no choice if they want to avoid an election.
Yeah, very interesting. That's host of Real Ag Radio, Shaun Haney. And you can catch Shaun on his show, Real Ag Radio, which airs at 4:30 p.m. Eastern weekdays on Real Radio, channel 147 on Sirius XM. And we'll visit with him again tomorrow on Market Day Report.